In 1901, a boat of Greek sponge divers got caught in a storm and dropped anchor beside a bare rock in the middle of the Aegean, an island called Antikythera. While they waited out the weather, a diver named Elias Statiatis put on a copper helmet and went down to see what was on the seabed. He came back up shaking. He said there were bodies down there, dead people, horses, corpses scattered across the sand as far as he could see. His captain assumed he was drunk on bad air, so the captain went down himself and came back holding a human arm, made of bronze. What Statiates had found wasn't a graveyard. It was a Roman cargo ship, sunk around 2,000 years ago, loaded with looted Greek art, marble limbs, and corroded bronze statues half buried in the sand, which at 45 meters in bad light looks exactly like a field of the dead. Statues, glass, jewelry, and coins all went to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, cataloged as what they obviously were, treasure. And in with the treasure was a lump, a corroded green mass of bronze and rotted wood, roughly the size of a shoebox, that nobody paid much attention to for months. Then it split open on a shelf, and inside the lump was a gear. Not a decoration shaped like a gear, a precision gear wheel with hand-cut triangular teeth, of the kind you would expect to find inside a clock sitting in a shipwreck from a century before Christ, more than 1,000 years before anything like it was supposed to exist. Here's the part that should stop you cold. We have scanned this object down to individual teeth. We know in astonishing detail what it did, and we still cannot tell you who built it or where or why nothing else like it survives from the ancient world. Stay with me, because what it did is stranger than the mystery of who made it. Start with what's actually in the museum. The object is known today as the Antikythera mechanism. It survives as 82 corroded fragments. The largest holds around 30 interlocking bronze gears, stacked in layers, some under 2 millimeters thick. Reconstructions suggest the complete device had roughly double that. It sat in a wooden case about the size of a large hardback book, with bronze dials and pointers on the outside and a crank on the side. You turned the crank and the sky moved. That's not a metaphor. Turn the handle forward and every pointer advanced together, showing where the sun and moon sat against the constellations on any date you chose. Turn it backward and you saw where they had been. That alone would be remarkable. It's nowhere near the strangest part. On the back of the machine were 2 large spiral dials, and this is where the ancient engineer starts to feel like a magician. The upper spiral tracked a 19-year cycle, the time it takes for the moon's phases to line back up with the same dates of the solar year. The Greeks called it the Metonic cycle, 235 lunar months, folded into a spiral you followed with a sliding pin. The lower spiral did something else entirely. It predicted eclipses. It ran on the Saros cycle, about 18 years and 11 days, after which the geometry of sun, earth, and moon repeats closely enough that eclipses come around again in a recognizable pattern. Engraved glyphs told you which month to expect one, whether it would be solar or lunar, roughly what hour, and sometimes a note on the color the moon might turn. A smaller dial corrected for the fact that the cycle drifts about 8 hours each time it repeats, so you could stay accurate across decades. And then there's the moon. The moon doesn't move across the stars at a steady pace. It speeds up and slows down through the month because its orbit isn't a circle, it's an ellipse. Greek astronomers had worked that out mathematically. The mechanism doesn't just calculate it, it performs it. Inside the gear train, 2 wheels sit almost on top of each other, very slightly off-center. joined by a pin on one that rides in a slot on the other. As they turn, that offset forces the pin to sweep fast through part of the rotation and slow through the rest. An elegant little cheat in bronze that turns a perfect circle into a variable speed, so a pointer on the front races and drags across the sky exactly the way the real moon does. There was also a moon phase display, a small ball, half silver and half black, turning in a window so you watched the moon wax and wane in miniature. And the surviving inscriptions, around 2,000 ancient Greek characters recovered by X-ray, effectively an instruction manual engraved on the machine itself, describe the planets and their cycles, strongly implying the front face also showed Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn moving against the stars. Which means somebody sometime around the 2nd or 1st century BC built a working model of the known universe that you operated with a crank that fit on a table. Now, let me be honest about the limits, because this is exactly the kind of story that gets wildly oversold. The planetary display is a reconstruction. That gearing does not survive. It's inferred from the inscriptions and from what the surviving gears demand. The most detailed model, published at University College London in 2021, is a hypothesis. A very good one, but a hypothesis. The dating is unsettled too. The inscriptions point to roughly 150 to 100 BC, while an analysis of the eclipse predictions argues the dial was set up starting in 205 BC, and there is no name on it. None. Which brings us to the real mystery, and it isn't the one people usually reach for. The mystery is not, how could ancient people be this clever? They were exactly this clever. The Roman writer Cicero, only a few decades after this ship went down, describes a bronze device that reproduced the motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets, and says one was built by Archimedes and another by the philosopher Posidonius on the island of Rhodes. We had the written testimony for 2,000 years. We simply assumed it was flattery. The seabed proved it wasn't. The real mystery is this. The Antikythera mechanism is not a prototype. The tooth cutting is confident. The layout is efficient. The engraving is the work of someone who had done it before. This is a mature product from a workshop tradition, which means there were others, possibly many others. And we have not found a single one. There is nothing else in the entire archaeological record of the ancient world with this kind of gearing. Nothing in the Roman period that follows. Nothing in the early medieval period. The next machines we can point to with comparable complexity are the great astronomical clocks of 14th century Europe. About 1,400 years later, bronze is the likely answer, and it's mundane and devastating. Bronze is valuable. Broken bronze gets melted down and recast into a tool, a coin, a weapon. The only reason this one survived is that it sank and stayed on the seafloor where nobody could recycle it. So here's what the Antikythera mechanism actually proves, and it has nothing to do with aliens or lost super civilizations. It proves that knowledge is not a ladder. We picture history as a slow climb, each generation standing a little higher than the last. But a technology can arrive early, work beautifully, be understood by a handful of people, and then quietly vanish, because the ones who could build it died, their students didn't, and there was no printing press, no journal, no way to hold on. An entire tradition of precision engineering existed, then it stopped, and the only reason we know is that one ship, on one bad night, went down beside one small rock. Which raises the question nobody can answer. If we needed a shipwreck to find out about this, what else did we already know and lose and never think to look for? If a 2,000-year-old machine that models the sky is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night, You're in the right place. Stick around and stay curious.